Hey, welcome back to the JRL Golf Academy. In this episode, we interview Nick Clearwater, VP of Instruction for Golf Tech, also ranked #1 teacher in Colorado, as well as best young teacher in America by Golf Digest. So in this episode, we go over a lot of things, especially topics of how to draw the golf ball consistently and building a system, as well as a lot of the science that goes behind Golf Tech. So I hope you enjoy this episode on JRL Golf Academy. You know what? Every person I've gone on with, we've all gone over the hour mark. We start, like it just starts.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah, it starts flowing. We start get going, and you can only do an hour on Instagram Live, and then they.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So we're good now. We're good. We got more coins in the parking meter.
More coins in the meter. All right, I like it.
More coins in the meter.
Yeah, I don't quite know where I was. I was talking about, like, imagine if you went to take a tennis lesson and you kept hitting shots where the racket was horizontal, so you never hit the strings.
Yeah.
Like, that would be so frustrating. And then if 5 lessons later the teacher told you, if you turn so that you can hit the actual face of the racket and hit the shots over the net, you should try that. It's like the equivalent of trying to learn golf, but not understanding that you need to hit with the face angle turned this way, and the swing direction causes the ball to curve relative to that. That would be horribly frustrating. I would hate that. So starting with just the rules of the game are where pretty much everyone needs to start anyway.
Yeah. And you're talking about just like we're talking about the club face relative to the swing direction of how that makes the ball curve. You've got really one of 3 options. A face that's closed to the path, a face that's square to the path, and a face that's open to the path. And you're going to get 3. Those are your 3 ball flights, folks. That's it.
Yep.
Nothing more, nothing less.
So if you've got the shaft in enough at 6 and your shoulder externally rotated enough, or at least just not internally rotated too much where you've pushed the butt end of the club out, you can raise the handle up enough where you can make sure that you swing to the right every time. And then coming through the ball, it's just as important on the follow-through as it is the downswing and with the face angle, is to hit and continue to let your wrist move towards ulnar deviation. That's where the shaft's extended a lot out with you. But to avoid that, that's really what's lowering the club to the ground. It's making the length of your swing longer. So you need to accommodate that by bending yourself backward, whether it's straightening your ankles and your knees and allowing your pelvis to get up high. That gives you room to then move your wrist from the radial deviation towards ulnar on this side of the ball and not smash into the ground. So this is almost the first thing someone should learn anyway, is how to do the follow through.
So and what Nick's talking about here with the ulnar is if I kept that lead wrist, what you're saying is that if I kept it in a radial, that this thing would just keep going around and crashing into the ground, right?
Well, it would move towards ulnar anyway, so that's making the club just stretch out further from you.
Well, I was talking about, like, if it starts coming out, say it's 6, and the mount, if I try, it's trying to go into ulnar, but if I'm trying to hold that out because of lag, right?
Oh, sure.
I'm trying to hold on to it, and you're just hitting these, like, weak little slices, right?
That'd be a hard way to hit the ball far, too. It's not a bad way to learn how to hit a shot. In the beginning, just learning how to punch the ground and then bend yourself backward and maybe not go into complete ulnar deviation, but limit that. That'd be a fine way to learn. Yeah. If you tried to hit a driver where you just held the radial as long as you could, even into the follow through, those wouldn't go very far.
Yeah. So that was really good. Love the explanation there. So now
as crazy as that sounds, John, like the first thing I generally teach people who don't know what they're doing is how to just make a backswing to either 2 or 3 maybe, and then how to do the follow through at 8. So they learn how to raise the butt end of the club through the ball, which accommodates the ulnar deviation that's happening and speeding up, so that they have a chance of hitting without the club bottoming out into the ground.
Yeah. Right.
And anytime the important part is the butt end of the club from about 6.5 to 8. Learning how to raise that up so you don't need to do it by pulling the club towards you.
Yeah.
Or flexing your elbow or extending your wrist. The way to make the butt end of the club rise has nothing to do with intentionally pulling this towards you. It has to do with how you're moving and making that rise up.
So, to that point there, like you're talking about the butt of the club raising and the club raising overall, right? Is a function of if I never move if I only move my arms, that's not going to work. But if I extended, that gets the club. As I'm extending and turning, that gets the club from 7 to 8 quite easily.
Yeah.
Right.
That made the butt end of the club move higher off the ground just by not really even flexing your arms.
Not even moving my arms.
You're not raising them up to do that. And you're certainly not pulling the butt end towards you as you're turning. There's more to it than that.
So I show that a lot where,
Yep.
just this motion, understand how it gets to 8, right? And where the pelvis
Sure.
is going.
Well, there's an interesting measurement there too, John. So the at address, the sensor that we put on your thorax or your upper cervical spine, it's actually closer to C7, is bent forward on average 41 degrees. When you get to impact, it's bent forward actually 31, so there's 10 degrees of forward bend that's come out. And then by the time you get to where your right arm's parallel to the ground, all the PGA Tour players I've measured at this point are back, and the average is somewhere between 15 and 20 degrees back with that shoulder sensor at that point in time. Meanwhile, you've got most of golfdom not understanding the bending backward and tilting either, but usually it's the bending backward that is the most lost on average golfers. They don't understand that that's happening all the time. Everybody's moving themselves in this dimension throughout the whole swing, which I know you know, but that's teaching someone how that works and then being able to quantify it, which is what we can do indoors, which is back to your very first question, why I teach indoors? Because it's easy to measure things.
Yeah.
So 41 forward, impact is 31, and then 15 to 20 back when your right arm's parallel to the ground, and you've got yourself like the foundation of how to swing. Then you can do everything else. But for most people, I start right there.
And that's the beauty about what you teach, what Golf Tech teaches, is that it covers a very wide landscape that it can cover with the system.
We can make it simple where someone who walks in and doesn't want to know anything other than just teach me to hit the ball better. Sure, no problem. Do this. Here, I'll hold this up, swing around this, don't hit it. Or it can be as complicated where we could have this conversation. We're past an hour, but it could go on for 8 hours and still describe the swing with measured detail, which I think is important, and that's hard to find in golf. I think is an easy measurement system. There are plenty of teachers right now who are studying invisible things and things you cannot use in golf lessons other than just the concept. But to know when to do that, how to do it, when someone's doing it too much, when someone's doing it too little, kinematics are still going to rule that world. And that's how to actually, while kinetics cause kinematics, it's actually in practical application of golf, the kinematics own those kinetics. And you've got to have a strong kinematic model, or else you're just a bad teacher. You're teaching people how to do the kinetics of push the club a certain direction at some point in time, and someone asks you, how do you do that? And you say, just do it more or do it less. You are not a golf teacher at that point in time.
Selling fairy dust.
Well, it sounds nice, but they're missing the point of how to actually help people, and it's not in kinetics right now. It's nice to understand that, and I'm searching down that same rabbit hole. I don't know if you've seen it yet, but we're looking to replace our 2-sensor system, and I'm still working on it right now, even though all of Golf Tech is closed. But we still have all of our employees we pay them. They're at home working right now and still trying to stay in contact and help their students. And we're about to do something pretty cool, I think, next week about ways we'll keep everybody there happy and working hard and get everybody engaged. But we also are working on an optical motion system. So what that's going to be is the cameras that we use, which are made by Gears. So we've got plenty of great friends who help us build cool things, and we can invest a ton in our product because we're just, we make so much money, really, teaching golf lessons. So we love to invest that back. So we've got a system now where it just watches you stand on the mat. You make a swing, and it's constructing a skeleton of 17 points, and that's how we'll start teaching motion as well. So within that, if we know where the club head is and we have some point on the grip, we're getting into how exactly we're going to do that, whether it's an actual device on the shaft or if we just pay attention to the butt end or where we think the middle of the grip is, similar to what Gears does now. We can do all the kinetics in there, but as great as that'll be, I still think that's going to fall a little short relative to the kinematic model that we've basically been talking about now for how to help people the quickest.
Well, still, and as a teacher, you have all this information. You guys are putting out great information. You're also doing a great job of continuing to move the bar. But I'm always impressed by you, Nick, of how well you're able to still just communicate it in the most simplistic form, right? Because it's a very complicated sport, but the art in teaching it the way you do is admirable, and something that I always strive to be able to do.
Well, that's nice of you to say, John.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. It's totally not necessary. But most of my lessons, you're kind of saying that. I mean, that's how I teach, though. It really is. Instead of explaining any of that detail that we just talked about, most of my lessons are, in the follow through, try to aim the patch of your glove like right back at your face, open the face when you hit. On the backswing, just move your hands behind you as much as you can to where you almost hit your right pant leg on the way back. That's how you can distill complicated subject matter down to something small.
Yeah.
And then if that doesn't work, you can layer in some more detail if someone doesn't respond real well to how much to try to do things.
Yeah.
Then just change your message a touch. So, like, for example, a lot of people who on the backswing move their hand path too straight, so they're ready to at P2 their swing direction is too far to the left. Good players, tour players, tons of them do it that way because if anything, they're fighting curving the ball or drawing too much. So anything they do on the backswing where the butt end of the club goes out isn't necessarily harming them. It's not necessarily how I would do it either, but it's okay. But a bad golfer who's already slicing across the ball that moves their hand path almost away from them from 1 to 2, a good place to start is learning how to get some inwardness to that. So 100%. Take the butt end of the club, graze your right leg on the way back. That's complicated for some people because they have to learn how to turn their pelvis enough too. So getting into it of turn your hips as much as you can by the time the shaft's parallel to the ground, and hit yourself would be another like layer of detail that isn't complicated, but would help somebody then take a simple message of move your hand path in from hit yourself with the club to turn as much as you can at 2. Start just making all of it easier, even though it's really complicated what you could say.
So exactly, and I love how you're simplifying things like that. I'll simplify that from 1 to 2 there. If it's a gentleman I'm working with, I'll tell him, hey, look, try to hit your nuts, but turn out of the way.
I like it.
Yeah.
Hey, there's a way to go. Sure. Yes. I like that. That simple message, man. That's teaching golf. Shouldn't be complicated.
Yeah.
What's in your head can be really complicated. Correct. And that's what actually makes teaching golf easier.
Yeah.
Most of the coaches that we have, a little over 200 of them that come to us every year. 750 or 850. It's hard for me to keep up with how many coaches we have, but 200 every year. Most of them come in and their systems are just really small because they haven't had the chance to use measurement tools like what we have, whether it's a Foresight Quad or it's our AMM 2-sensor system that Phil Cheatham made. Yeah. That's awesome. So they've never looked at golf like objectively or trying to use data to help them teach so that they knew how much to do something and when something had been done too much or too little and what would then be the result of where the ball goes. So we teach people all the time how to look at a piece of data, have an idea of what's going to happen next, look at a picture of a camera, know what's likely going to happen, and how to help people solve the biggest problems. And that's just really what we're doing every single day, all the time. But it's rare when one of those 200 people comes in and they really actually have like a grasp on. When I tell someone on the at address your thoracic spine is bent forward 41 degrees. And then at the top of the swing, it should actually be close to 0, which is really just me standing straight up. Yeah. Most people just on one measurement, and that's one of maybe 150 that we actually cover that are significant, actually get that. So it's really hard to teach golf without understanding the three-dimensional part of the swing and how to move yourself around when you play. But that's what we spend our time doing.
It makes it hard also. I mean, if you're not going out there and trying to learn from people like Nick as well about these pieces, because I can honestly say that, I'm cut from the same cloth, so to say, as Nick, from the information that I've received over the years. And getting that information got a lot easier when it was come to teaching.
Yeah. I mean, Mike Bennett taught me how, it's funny, I was a club pro in New York. I was on my way to have a head pro job or whatever. I was okay at golf. I'd won a few tournaments in the section. I was doing okay. But I had no idea what to do. But because I was really good at it, people thought I knew what I was doing.
Right.
So I spent my whole day on the driving range telling people to turn their hips more at a certain point, or I had like 3 lessons I could really teach.
Try this.
And then I meet Mike. Yeah. I mean, this is the one I've got 3. Here's the one you're gonna get. Yeah. And it didn't work very well. It worked sometimes, but not a lot. So my whole day was stressful.
Yeah.
So one, I'm trying to give every golf tech coach like a leisurely day when they come in. If you know what's going to happen, you know what to expect, and you know how to deal with that really quick. It is not stressful to teach golf. I don't want people to try to teach like I did before I learned how to measure a swing. Then Mike Bennett comes strolling in one day
with his Diet Coke.
Spits with his Diet Coke and some chewing, spits on the ground, and he tells me, I'm watching him teach a couple of members at the club I was at, which was I just was interested in teaching, although I had no idea what I was doing. And he starts telling me how he measures the swing, and I thought, I have no idea what you're talking about. You sound like a crazy person right now.
Yeah, right.
And then, here I am like 20 years later, and I was the crazy person. So everyone needs that influence, but you can't necessarily find answers to how to teach golf in books or DVDs. They don't really exist.
Yeah.
I haven't read a golf book that I thought was ever any good ever, maybe. Really, because they're not built on foundations of measuring. Most of them are the way everybody learns, whether it's teachers or students, is people who are good at the game say things.
Yeah.
Those things get written in a book. Thousands of people read this book, and then that becomes the dogma garbage that you hear Brandel Chambly and Nick Faldo regurgitate on TV.
Tiger Woods going, I snapped my left leg. That's it for more power.
Yeah. Which Brandel Chambly would be fun to talk about for a few minutes if we do have some time in there.
Hey, this go anywhere, and I'm the number. Yeah, I'm good with that, and I'm sure.
All right, so
I'm sure we'll light up the comments too.
Oh yeah. That guy is definitely the lightning rod. So all these people read these books that are written by people but have never taught anyone, never measured swing, don't really know anything other than swing. It works great. That's about all they know. And then people read that and they take those little tidbits that are purely objective for that person and then try to implement them into their game. And then that's why everyone stinks at golf.
Yeah.
So until the way you would want to do that is that everyone stinks at golf. We're in a huge mess right now of no one actually knows how to play golf very well. And I find there are very few people that actually know how to teach using data.
Yeah.
You teach using something that worked for them. Anecdotally for most people, but it's not enough. So then we're in this rut, we're in this garbage zone of swing your swing, and don't worry about things or whatever you bring. You want to have the best version of you.
Yeah.
All this is just total trash because there are very specific things really good players do. They just have to be able to measure them so that you can talk about it. So the way you really want to get out of that pitfall is to measure the difference between what makes someone good and what makes someone bad, correlate those together to skill level, and then how they moved around when they swung or where the club was or the shaft was throughout the swing. And use that data to drive your decisions of how to teach golf. That is how you would do it if you could start over again. But there aren't many people at scale doing that at all. I'm just trying to lead that push along where don't tell me what you think about it. I would like to know, I'd like to see some sort of measurement of what you did and what's different, and tell me how this is objectively different, that this person did something, and that's how you're going to help them do it again. That just doesn't exist.
Success, I always say success leaves clues, and now you're just measuring those clues.
Yeah, well, you want to know what the good players do and what the bad ones do. We
Yeah.
started on that journey a long time ago.
Yeah.
Now I just want to make that even like bigger. So
Yeah.
imagine I've got this two sensor system, 90,000 players, and I know what their handicaps are. So I know how someone moved when they swung and how good they are. Take the good players here. And I know how all the bad players moved, and they're down here. And there are huge separators of skill in there. So we started with just those two wired sensors. Now I want to take the 17 plus the club plus the grip plus the kinetics and make the study of what makes someone good and bad with hundreds of variables in a swing. That is where we're headed to next.
No, I love that. I love that. God bless. Well,
So you were talking about Brandel. Isn't it convenient how someone who's never taught a golf lesson, at least as far as I can tell, like a real golf lesson,
yep.
sure knows how to teach golf and how golf should be taught.
All you got to do is
what
lift
do
your
you
left foot up.
Well, I mean, that's like the difference is he wrote this book of lift your foot, lift your lead foot, fine, whatever.
Okay.
Raise your arms over your head. Raise your arms over your head because good players did that.
Yeah.
I could also, once the world becomes a little less chaotic, go to Topgolf and watch 99 out of 100 players there do that, and 80 out of those 100 miss the ball.
Yeah.
What he really wrote a book about was how to do like the worst swing, but he doesn't see that because he's looking at good players that do the traits that he has this bias towards. What he's not looking at is, man, I go to Topgolf and everybody's doing this. Now what do I say to that? Like that's a real conflict right there.
Yeah, I've got nothing to stand on now.
Are those actually separators of skill, or are those just like the non-defining qualities of decent golf? Like I would say that's like there's probably like a piece of rust on this smoker somewhere because it sits out here all winter.
That a
If
Traeger?
I scrape, it is.
Oh,
If you scrape some rust off of that, that is like the equivalent of saying, well, to be good at golf, you just need to lift your trail or your lead heel off the ground in the backswing. It's like the rust on the bridge or the rust on that smoker over there. It has no bearing on whether or not that thing's going to work. It just is like it's a noticeable thing that you've pointed out, but it doesn't mean anything.
Well, that's mainly because
So,
he doesn't have an eye to measure things, number one. I mean,
he's got no way to do that. Any teacher who is talking about either science or is on TV and talking about golf instruction, but they've never strapped somebody up into a 6 degree of freedom swing to measure their kinematics is a farce. Is a total joke.
Yeah.
And then if you haven't taught people, take that a step further. So there are teachers in this new land of science who have never actually measured anyone in kinematics or used a gear system or anything like that, but they're experts. That's not right, but whatever. Then take that a step further. Let's say you've never done anything of measuring a swing, plus you've never taught anyone. And then now I'm going to go write a book about how I've never measured anyone, never taught anyone, but this, John, this is how you do it.
This is it. This is the deal.
If poor Brandel understood that what he really needed to know to teach golf, his head would be spinning. He'll be apologizing someday on national TV that he didn't really know how to teach golf. That's a dream, by the way, but it could happen.
Like if the Golf Channel wanted to get some better ratings, that would be an awesome show to watch Brandel teach for a year on some public range and have people just random students coming up.
Oh, that'd be a ton of fun. I love the idea of like having a competition where you teach someone for 10 lessons, I'll teach someone for 10 lessons, and then we'll start with a TrackMan combine or their launch monitor data and their score. And then we'll come back after the end of those 10 lessons, let them play 3 rounds of golf. We'll have them do a TrackMan combine again, and then we'll just see which approach is better. He won't win that one.
No,
ever.
We know that. And you know what? Also, to that point, some of these, I don't know, what do we call them? Golf scientists, I don't even know what we're supposed to categorize them in.
I'm not real sure, John. I'd like to know, though, because at Golf Tech we actually employ, it depends on the day, somewhere between 5 and 7 PhDs. I'm going to do some interviews with them as well so that people can actually see what we're doing.
Yeah.
So we have basically the equivalent of all the top golf scientists working for us on different projects right now. I just don't really talk about very much. Wow. So I'd like to know what the golf scientists really are called, so I can say that, share our claim there.
Are any of those guys going to be hitting
rubber balls into a net and trying to figure out how to make.
Well, no, and I certainly
Okay.
wouldn't critique their styles. None of them know how to play golf,
Okay.
which is a lot of fun because their job really is, as how they describe it, they don't know the subject matter. I have to ask them a question
Okay.
or instruct them on what to do, and then they act in accordance to science and help me realize how to either describe something or how to study something. That's their job. It isn't they're only as good as the questions they're really asked, is what they often say.
So
So,
knowing you,
well,
are you gonna definitely ask them what's the function of a golf club?
oh yeah, they know that.
Okay.
They know
What?
that now. They didn't
Okay.
know that at first. They really start with like, okay, we're going to do golf science. What do we do? Well, what makes someone better than someone else? Let's start with that. The point is to hit a ball where you want it to go. It's not to. I'm quite honestly like fine with hitting foam balls into the wall, like you're referring to Dr. Kwan or anyone else I've heard about do golf science. I don't care about that. I'm trying to say, well, let's go. I almost don't care where that one shot went. What does it take to go out there and shoot a good score or hit the most amount of shots where you want? And not how did they do that and what made them swing a few miles an hour faster than someone else? It's like, what does a bad player do and a good one do
Yeah. Yeah.
on
Yeah.
average? And that
Yeah.
would be a good place to start. Then you'd have a bunch of skill separators that are cool to talk about.
Well, let's hope
I don't
that.
know. I'm a huge fan of everyone trying to do science. I think that's great. I just I don't want it to be lost on. I'm probably trying to lead a team that's bigger than anyone else is doing golf science right now. And that once in a while we should be talking about. I just don't right now because I need to get a little further along in our exploration of explaining skill separators and I'm not actually interested as much in forces and torques as I am something else, and that was
Really?
their idea too. Yeah, it's not to don't dwell on that. There's something that's probably more important. Although we'll do the forces and torques as well. We've already been graphing some of that out. There's something else that hasn't been talked about yet. So I got to save that one for another day, John.
I think that's amazing, though, the work that you're doing on such a big level. I mean, because the things that you find out, myself and a lot of these guys, teachers in here, I see Dave Franks and Manavian, the things that you're finding out, they trickle down to us, and it's really important with the
Yeah.
development of the game.
Well, thanks again. You're saying a lot of nice things, John, and I'm not looking for that stuff. It's
No,
really I'm trying to get everybody the best information that I can just out there. Right now, it's started with kinematics of two sensors, which should not be overlooked, although it's usually used as it's the biggest kinematic study in golf ever done, but it's discredited somehow by the marketing material that we use to entice people to understand it better who don't play or teach golf. But I want to make this thing so powerful that you can't look for it's like a resource to learn how to teach golf. Eventually, I'll have enough data sitting around in our golf tech library, which is already terabytes and terabytes of data, that you would start by saying, I have this idea, like John, you'd wake up in the morning and say, hey, I wonder about where the shaft should be at 3.5 when I look at it from the side view. I think I know, but I've never really tried to measure that. And then you go to a golf tech resource that shows here are 500 PGA Tour players and 100,000 players of different skill levels, and here's where they put it.
yeah,
And you could almost like interactively work with that. That's what I'm after here in the end. So instead of looking for a book or a DVD or asking a bunch of your friends, hey, what do you think about this? I would just put that all out there and say, here's what it is. Here's the answer already. You don't need to ask anyone else.
that's pretty amazing, the work you're doing there. And back to the point, I'm glad that you're the one leading this with all these scientists, because this thing can go really awry really fast. But I know your background and how hard you've worked with these things, and your practical application is so usable, especially with what I do every day. I can't thank you enough for doing that stuff. And
No, man, it's you're doing the same thing. I think I just appreciate anyone who knows how to teach people to close the face of the path and keep the angle of attack near the tour average or slightly less, and just teach everybody to do it that way. It's
keep
an
it
easy
simple.
way to play.
keep it somewhere in there. Did you have fun, Nick?
Absolutely. It's always fun to talk about golf. And I did probably say more than I usually do. I think that's important for people to understand. Like every time I speak publicly, I don't always say what's really on my mind. Even parts of this aren't really, they're somewhat censored anyway.
Yeah.
And that's just how it has to be. So it's fun to be able to talk a little more candidly about some things and then even layer in some detail. Most of the stuff I do on Golf Channels, like I do 300 of those a year. And most of them are, if you slice, just do this. And then watch me do it, because that's the only formula that they allow me to really do.
Yeah.
I can't say much detail. I can't really bring like a complicated subject in and talk about it. That's what was fun to do about on Chris Como's show. We did get to do a bunch of that on Swing Expedition, was talk about some detail in the swing. But even that is such a short show, it just doesn't give you time.
That's the beauty of this platform, I found, starting to do this stuff and being able to demonstrate while you describe and stuff like that. I think that's really important. You know what I
mean? What else are you doing today, John? Are you trying to find a new internet company?
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
That's probably going to be the next phase of today. But
hit some shots into your net.
Yeah, like I said, I haven't missed yet in 3 weeks. So
you're doing great. You're doing great.
Doing all right over there. But hey, let's finish with this. How, if people want to get a hold of you, or other than Nick's on the Golf Channel all the time and he's at Golf Tech, your information or whatever, or Instagram, like what do you want to put out there?
Well, first, don't try to get a hold of me. I can't. I don't answer my phone. I'm sorry. I have too many voicemails. I can't answer the email. So what you should do is follow Golf Tech around. So we've got the Golf Tech Instagram page is fine. I don't participate in that. The Golf Tech YouTube page, though, I am putting out some new stuff there once in a while. Mainly, I'm trying to actually cover some club fitting topics that are interesting. We didn't talk about that today, John, but that'd be an interesting one for you to watch, like a couple of the club fitting videos I did on some driver heads. We actually measure the center of gravity, project that on the face, which is not the same as just drawing a horizontal line, and then measure the MOI in the same machines that the USGA and RNA use to do that. From there, you can find where the center of gravity actually is in the club head and how that could influence either the spin rate or the X and Y gear effect.
Now,
and that I've found to be
right?
So interesting.
That's a Golf Tech technology?
No, those are devices you can buy from other people that make them, but they cost about $10,000, so no one buys them.
Yeah.
We try to research and investigate as much as we can, because we are able to make a bunch of money so that we can research our products better and invest back into our business that way. So that's one of them that we've done, since we're selling a lot of golf clubs now, I think the way people test golf clubs is terribly, terribly wrong. When you watch a YouTube video because a new driver comes out and you just watch like two guys hitting shots and talking about where the balls went, it's like the most ridiculous and archaic way to test a golf club. What you'd really want to do is measure where the center of gravity is, measure the MOI of the club head itself, and then from there take one shaft for hundreds of club heads and measure the ball speed out of 9 different points on the face, and you would know everything about that club to tell someone, this one is for you because the CG is here, the face is faster off of these different points on the club where you tend to hit it, and you want to change how you hit. We know which club head you need. Not just watching people hit and say, wow, this one's better than last year's, and it's more stable than last year's. There is no such thing as more stable than last year's. The CG and the MOI are just in a slightly different place, and they're not massively different. It's I don't know. That one's probably my new favorite one, is measuring club heads and giving reviews about club heads and shafts is just such a garbage piece of content that's created right now. And while all the people I'm sure are really nice, they're all doing it wrong. So I want to start diving more into that.
I can't wait to see your research on that stuff, and maybe we'll save that for as you're a little further down. We'll do that for our next interview. Talking about, I did want to talk about that today, but I think that's,
Yeah.
I didn't realize you were that deep into that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I got some robot testing lined up, some golf ball testing lined up, some shaft testing lined up, and that'll be done at different club head speeds because I think the adage of the shaft is the engine of the club is a terribly, terribly misinformed and wrong story. So all of that I want to pick apart, and then I'd like to actually go into which golf balls actually go the farthest and which ones spin the most and what should you play. That can be done. It's just no one's telling that story right or at
Hey,
all.
let me ask you this: just like you said, shafts, are they over? Like, are you going to get a bigger change out of? Let's just say you were going to use a bunch of tailor-made driver heads, whatever. We'll just use 20,
Yeah,
and you had 20 Fujikura shafts, all the top of the line, all the shafts. Would you get
sure.
would you get a bigger difference in rifling through shafts or heads? Like trying to find
Well,
the head.
most people will have should use the head as the main tool of changing what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So the center of gravity, which head out of the line the OEM makes. As you start swinging faster, I think the shaft matters. But I'm actually pretty far along on the path of if you swing under 92 miles an hour, then almost any shaft you're going to put in there, it just about doesn't matter. But now I need to provide the evidence to support the hypothesis.
Now, are you talking about stiffness doesn't matter, or are you talking about like different manufacturer shafts?
I'm pretty much talking about all of it.
Oh, okay.
Stiffness, the flex, the weight. There's some changes. Weight I would go with flex and weight as the best ways to fit people, and then don't worry about the rest of the marketing piece behind it. Those are the tiniest details. They're not the big ones. But I'm pretty far along on if you swing 90 miles an hour, I'll give you anything you want. It's almost not going to matter as long as it's within range. So a regular or an X that weigh about the same, it's not going to matter. A regular shaft in any weight probably won't matter too much. Getting the length, getting the club head, getting the weight of the shaft, getting the stiffness, get those all about right, and you're pretty much done. Not everyone needs an aftermarket $400 shaft. Where that becomes a caveat is once you get above 92, I think it starts to matter. But even that is hard to quantify. It's hard to interpret, and it's hard to take a good guess at what's going to happen.
It's funny you say that, Nick, because that kind of rings in my ear because one of my guests coming up who works with a bunch of tour players, he's been saying that to me for a while now. He says I've got every shaft that is made to man.
Yep.
But he's all like, whenever with his tour players, he's like, he just tells the reps send more heads. He's like, I just don't see a difference with the shaft, man.
Yeah, and I'm sure you can find people right now who fit PGA Tour players that say the shaft really matters.
Yeah.
It depends on how you want to try to fit people. Well, shaft companies, they have to say that. But
they have to say that.
It does matter. It's just to what level. When you swing slowly, under 92, you should not be worrying about what shaft you have in there. You need to get the club head to fit you really well, which is getting harder these days because there's less adjustability built into the driver heads and especially into the fairway woods than there once was. But as you get better at the game, I'm particular about what I play sometimes. I haven't played golf in almost a year and a half, but the driver I have, I would just want it a certain way. But I hit shots all the time with other people's clubs, and I don't really see the difference really in my own game that way.
Yeah, it's because you got skills.
Well, it's like you. I'm sure you don't play in practice all the time, but your system is good enough where that's like a testament to it. So I don't play. I don't practice. Like if you see me hit on the golf channel, I've probably hit 4 balls leading up to that if I had time, and then we go. And that's it because there's just I'm not really interested in playing or practicing at all really anymore. But that should be a testament to some degree of do you know what you're doing? Yeah. Or you don't need to work on this all the time, and I still know how to make a ball drop most of the time.
And I bet you can make it fade too when you want.
I can. It's just I'm not as good at it, but I can do it. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Nick. Well, with that, man, I appreciate you. If you guys want to follow Nick, you'll see him on the golf channel. You'll see him in with Golf Tech. He's an absolute wealth of knowledge. Today he dropped a bunch of knowledge today, a bunch of nuggets for us all that we can use in our everyday teaching. And if you guys missed anything here or you tuned in late, you can always follow. You'll be able to find all this information. This was a great episode, Nick. People, I think, are going to be referring to this a lot. You can find it at JRL Golf Academy on YouTube. Nick, thank you so much, bud. And
Thanks, man. I think it's cool you're doing this.
I hope to have you on again soon, buddy. Love talking to you.
Yeah. Anytime. You let me know. If we can fit it in, I'll do it for sure.
I appreciate it, Nick. Take it easy, buddy.
Thanks for watching, everybody, the JRL Golf Academy. Please make sure to link and comment down below. Make sure you subscribe and turn on that little bell for notifications. And we look forward to seeing you on the next JRL Golf Academy.